you guys. So I am Rose for real. Literally. Ugh. Okay. So I apologize in advance for all of the Rose in the background. There's not much I can do about her. But this, in English, we've been focusing lately on water and sustainability, and we talked about how there's a problem. Like, we're never going to run out of water, just based on the way that evaporation and all that works. I think I don't teach science, but on the same end, like we're kind of over tapping in on our resources. It's kind of like in I think about my bank account. Um, like I could constantly be putting money into my bank account, like I get paid every 2 weeks, right? But I'm not going to be sustainable with that money if I'm buying things online every day. So like I have this money now, but does it mean that I need to spend it? Yes, usually I should follow my own advice. But it's the same thing in this sense with water. We have all of this water, but we feel like we have that right to kind of use it over and over and over again and not really think about what the negatives of that are going to be. And so last week we talked about water sustainability in industry and how businesses can really profit off of the saving. Businesses can profit when they find ways to save water. For example, the cruise ships substituted water and ice with that river rock, and it was something that they could reuse over and over again. They didn't have to make sure that they constantly had to create water for their people over and over and over again. So we talked about that with IBM, the cruise lines, Levi's, and I think that was it. Okay, and then we watched that video. So this week we're going to be focusing on agriculture because industry and agriculture are the biggest users of water. We learned that in those videos. It's like 40-something% goes to industry, 40-something% goes to agriculture, and the rest is like municipal and personal, or however that was. I can go back and look that up. But so these are our two major uses and users of water. So we already kind of looked at how industry does that. So this week we're going to be focusing on agriculture. So water, like just because we don't necessarily have a water shortage in Illinois doesn't mean that that's the same everywhere. I mean, we know from a long walk to water, Naya had to walk hours and hours every day just to give water, the water needed to survive. We know in the deserts, like there's not as much water there. And so even though it might not be an issue for us, like it can be an issue somewhere else. So we're going to take our agriculture all the way to Australia. Okay, and so this is from The Big Thirst, which this one. Okay, so I have the PDF. I'm just going to kind of read through it. Instead of me reading through it and then doing another video of me explaining it, I'm just going to kind of read through it and explain as we go. So I'm hoping that you guys will follow along and with this PDF and see kind of how agriculture uses water and how water is so important, because we talked about like if Levi's, for example, if water was a problem and Levi's couldn't get the cotton that they needed for their blue jeans, then Levi's wouldn't be able to make money. They wouldn't have a sustainable business. And so we're going to see how water is essential for agriculture, but thinking about how we can balance them. So this is an excerpt about a guy whose name is Laurie Arthur. He is an Australian rice farmer. So I didn't know much about rice farming. From the Midwest, I know a little bit about corn, beans, I don't know, other stuff. But so this is really just focusing on rice. So Laurie Arthur jounces around his farm in a white 2006 four-wheel drive Toyota Land Cruiser that is dusted with grit to the windowsills, equally dirty inside and outside, the only way farm vehicles get dirty. Across the front end is bolted a grill to reduce the danger from hitting kangaroos. Arthur killed one the previous night with his wife Deb in the passenger seat on the way to a Mother's Day dinner. During the workday, 3 dogs keep Arthur company from the rear cargo compartment. 3 antennas wag from the front bumper. He's got radios and a dash-mounted cell phone to be able to stay in touch across a lot of distance. A box of rifle cartridges is jammed in a crevice of the front seat, and the guns are locked up in the house. A lot of tools are in easy reach across the back seat. Arthur is a rice farmer in the basin of Australia's Murray River. So I want to see Australia's Murray River basin. So in terms, ooh, that's beautiful. Okay, so in terms of where Australia is, okay, so it looks like in this little part here, it's kind of around this area. Beautiful. Okay, so anyways, that's where he is. Laurie Arthur has 10,450 acres of fields in the wide open rangeland called the Riverina. At the extremes, he has fields 25 miles from each other. His nearest neighbor, who also happens to be his best friend, is fellow farmer Nick Lowing, who is 20 kilometers down the road. The Thai restaurant where he, Deb, and their daughter Lauren had Mother's Day dinner is 70 kilometers from home, and the nearest movie theater is 160 kilometers away. So essentially what this paragraph is trying to tell us is that his farm is in the middle of nowhere. There's neighbors like 20 kilometers away, 40 kilometers away. If you want to go have Thai, you have to go 70 kilometers away. So I don't know. Let's see. 70 km, 2 miles. Okay, so it's like 45 minutes, but still that's quite a long time. So, and then they said the movie theater is 160, 100 miles away just to go see a movie. So his farm is out there and he has so much farmland. All right. Arthur's farm neighborhood is crisscrossed with well-maintained dirt roads, and Arthur cruises at 100 kilometers per hour, which is really just 60 miles an hour, often flanked by squads of kangaroos who move with the ease of dolphins alongside a boat. I really like that imagery because in Australia, we have kangaroos everywhere. I've never seen one. I had a friend from Australia who ate a kangaroo once. It's like eating cow, which is still super weird to me. But anyways, when he describes it as we have his Land Rover that he just described, and then he's flanked by these squads of kangaroos. Anyways, it just painted a mental picture for me, and I just wanted to point out that imagery. So Arthur points out a wedge-tailed eagle gliding low above the scrub. Native to Australia, the black-feathered raptors are as big as bald eagles, the largest birds of prey in Australia, and are often seen feasting on road-killed kangaroo. Farmers in the Murray Basin, I know, yeah. Sorry, my husband. Farmers in the Murray Basin grumble about them because they have a reputation for taking young lambs. Arthur is more tolerant. I think they just get the lambs that are dead already, said Arthur. Sure, they do kill the occasional lamb that's not dead, but they do it with such style. Seems like murder's okay as long as you do it with style. That's not what I'm saying, but that's what he's saying. But it's about eagles and lambs. So anyways, although the little town of Moolameen, near Arthur's farm, is about 150 miles from the edge of the true Australian outback, and all this land has been ranched and farmed for 150 years. This is the Australian bush. The land is arid, flat, and empty. It is no place to underestimate nature. So when I heard the Australian bush, I immediately went back to my prior knowledge of what we read earlier this year, the A Long Walk to Water, because Salva and Naya's environment was in the African bush. And similar to what there's just described in the Australian bush is that, this is like a no joke landscape. Like it's no place to underestimate nature. As he said, it's flat, empty, arid, not a place you would want to, be stranded. So, anyway, so no one knows that better than Laurie Arthur. Normally, he's a rice farmer on land that is fertile but dry. His water comes from irrigation canals supplied by the Murray River. But now he's trying to be a rice farmer in the big dry. The irrigation canals are dry. The Murray River itself is dry. We wheel into an empty brown field called Jurassic Park. Australian farmers call their fields paddocks, and Arthur names all of his paddocks. The previous farmer wasn't that attentive, he said. His excavator broke down there or down here, and when we bought this, it was a jungle rather than a well-tended field. So we called it Jurassic Park. Gives you an idea of the landscape. We climb out and we're looking out across 150 acres of dirt, a whole wide space that stretches halfway to the horizon, a single field that has a border 2 miles around. It is only 1% of Arthur's farmland. The ground is rough and uneven. You wouldn't drive anything but a piece of farm equipment into Jurassic Park. The soil is clay-like. When you lift a chunk, it has a surprising heft. So it's really describing this dry, dead area. When he was talking about like looking out on the horizon, I pictured like in the beginning of The Lion King when he's like, Simba, all that you see is yours. Okay, that was like my Mufasa voice. It wasn't very good. But then I'm thinking about like even that type of landscape being super dry and arid. Basically, what I'm getting from this is he has all of this acreage that is unusable. It'd be like trying to grow oranges in Illinois because our climate just doesn't work for it. No, we're going to have dinner in a few minutes. Go find dad. So, we're seeing that he has this problem. Even empty, the tilled field makes you want to draw in a deep breath. Arthur, who lives in the modern farming world of digital specificity, his fields laser leveled, his tractors GPS guided, his crop yields computer mapped, loves simply being outside. His eyes take in the sweep of Jurassic Park. It's beautiful country, eh? He smiles. I sure would like to be pulling 600 tons of rice off this field right now, Arthur says, looking at the empty, sandpaper dry field underneath a cloudless sky is like looking at an idle factory. Bad news. Normally, you'd never catch me at this time of the year. I'd be in a combine, and for the second year in a row, I'm growing basically nothing. He has this problem. It's empty, sandpaper dry field. Normally at this time, said he'd be like harvesting, but for 2 years in a row, he's had nothing. That kind of reminds me, I don't know much about farming, but I've felt like from the Midwest, because we've had so many cold winters, that there was a farming problem. Farmers are losing out on a lot of stuff because nature isn't allowing them to grow. So farmers grow cotton here and oranges, almonds, apples, wheat, and miles of grapevines to supply the worldwide taste for Australian wine. The Murray River Basin is also dairyland, and to grow grass for to grow grass for milk cows, farmers routinely flood their paddocks. So they have a lot of different things that they field or they farm, and in order to provide for the cows to get the nutrients they need from the grass, they have to flood their fields. And so that reminds me of something we didn't read, so I'm not even going to bring that up. Okay, so Arthur, like all the farmers for hundreds of miles around, is an irrigator. Rain is essential, but the rain needs to fall to fill the Murray River. Duh. Water comes into the river from reservoirs 500 miles away, and then to Arthur's fields and irrigation channels designed to rely on gravity flow to get the water delivered. I got a lot. No. Standing at the edge of Jurassic Park, the obvious question is, what are they thinking? Who in the world would imagine a quilt of emerald green rice paddies here in this semi-desert? So I need to see what these rice paddies look like. Rice paddy. Oh, yeah. Okay. So when I'm seeing this, like these rice paddy fields, I mean, they clearly need water. I don't see how it would be possible to grow rice like this in a desert with no water. Like from all these pictures I'm seeing, that it's essential that to grow rice you need like look at that, like a corn maze but rice paddy. All right, so the Australians, of course, weren't thinking any differently than the farmers of California's Imperial Valley, which is part of the Sonoran Desert and gets just 3 inches of rain a year. But with water piped 80 miles from the Colorado River, it is the 11th most productive agricultural county in the United States. Interesting. So the Australians weren't thinking any differently than the 2 million people of Las Vegas. They weren't thinking any differently, in fact, than the rice growers of Egypt or the operators of the 200 golf courses in Phoenix, Arizona. So I bring up this 200 golf courses in Phoenix, Arizona. So I want you to picture a golf course. Okay, it's green and hilly. Okay, now I want you to picture Phoenix, Arizona. It's in the desert. So, like, how can you have a green golf course in the desert? A lot of water. Okay, so that's kind of what they're comparing this to. So if Arthur's Jurassic Park doesn't seem like a spot where an ordinary person would ever imagine growing rice, both the land and the farmers know better. The soil loves growing rice. Our yields are the best in the world, says Arthur, just ahead of the Egyptians. Arthur averages 4 tons of rice per acre, 20% more than U.S. farmers. Indeed, despite the drought in 2010, with an overall rice crop at just 20% of normal, Murray Basin rice farmers set a world record for productivity, growing 4.9 tons per acre, 3 times the world's average. One reason Arthur and his colleagues grow rice is because it is very profitable. Okay, so you have this really great season. You're going to make a lot of money, but what happens if you don't get that rain? Okay, so, but to grow rice, Arthur needs to turn Jurassic Park, remember, which is 150 acres, into a shallow pond, flooding it with 4 inches of water and keeping the rice plant diked in with 4 inches of water for 14 weeks. So keeping that pond of water on Jurassic Park right through the Australian summer ultimately requires flowing in enough water to have filled the field 4 feet deep. And they normally are getting like 3 inches of water a year. So every dinner plate serving of medium grain rice Arthur grows requires 14.4 gallons of water in the field. So if I want to have like rice, I don't know, just the size of a dinner plate, just like for me to eat for dinner by myself, I'm going to need 14.4 gallons of water in the field. So picture a gallon of milk and then have 14.4 of those. And then that's going to give you 1 serving of rice. So they need a lot of water. So when it comes to water, Arthur, who is 56 years old, is all in a way most people never have to be in their whole lives about anything, let alone simply water. He has 3 million Australian dollars in farm equipment and land that costs nearly 2 million. Without rain, without water, it's all dust. So he's invested $5 million into this rice farming business. Okay, he's got bills to pay and he doesn't have any rice. So in the big dry, without rain, without water, it's all dust. Water is 90% of the value of my assets, he says. I've been farming for 28 years. I like what I do. Ultimately, if I get it wrong, though, I'll go broke. In the big dry, Laurie Arthur is both a water baron and a water prisoner. So Arthur owns 6,000 megaliters of water a year, and when he can, he uses it all. That is, Arthur, a lone Australian, owns and uses enough water to supply an entire city for half a year. When he gets all 6,000 megaliters, he can grow enough food in a year to feed 100,000 people, which means that with half the water the city of Toowoomba uses in a year, Arthur can raise enough food to feed the whole city for a year. So it's like this double-edged sword. Like, the city needs water, the city needs food. He needs a lot of water to make the food for the city. So, okay, great. 6 gigaliters of water is an amount hard to imagine. A single liter of water is what one of those shapely, slightly chubby Evian bottles hold. 1 liter. So think of just like a bottle of water. Okay. 6 gigaliters of water is 6 billion 1-liter bottles. So hold on. Okay. So this is 1 liter. 6 gigaliters of water is 6 billion of these. Okay. And Laurie Arthur owns 6,000 megaliters of water. So 6 gigaliters of water is really a lake of water. Okay. If you had a valley, for instance, 1/2 mile wide and 1.5 miles long, I can't even run 1.5 miles. So that sounds like a nightmare. Super long. Okay. 6 gigaliters of water would fill it 10 feet deep. Okay. So y'all, I'm not even 6 feet tall. So just this mile, all this length, and then it would fill 10 feet, okay, of water. So he gets that much water. Meanwhile, that amount of water is the amount of water an entire city uses in a half a year. Okay, so that's just crazy. So it seems like a colossal slug of water, 6 gigaliters. But for Arthur, it's the right amount, and really not even that much. For the land he owns, which is 10,450 acres, it comes to just 5.5 inches of water on average across every square foot of dirt over 9 or 10 months of good growing season underneath Australia's blazing sun, which is to say, in order to feed 100,000 people for a year, Arthur needs just 5.5 inches of water, his land, and his labor. But Arthur only gets to buy the water he's entitled to if there's enough water in the Murray River. Each year, he gets some allocation of the 6,000 megaliters based on the water available in the dams and the river. So from 1991 to 1999, for 9 years in a row, he got 100% of the water that he could. So he can buy all of this water, but if there's not any water for him to buy, he doesn't get that. So over the 3 years, from 2007 to 2009, Arthur received enough of his water allocation to put 5.5 inches on just 950 acres. Okay, meanwhile, this guy has over 10,000 acres. So I don't know how to do math really. I'm sure if I could do it with a calculator, but figure that out. Okay, he had enough water for 950 out of 10,450 acres. Okay, Alexa, what is 950 divided by 10,450? Alexa, what is 950 divided by 10,450?
Divided by 10,400. 9.9.
So he got like 9%? Okay, yeah, 9% of what he had in farmland was able to be farmed. Okay, so that's not a lot. During a time when he should have planted, watered, and harvested 31,350 acres of crops, his land 3 times over, he's had enough water to irrigate just 3% of it. Okay, I messed up in math somehow. So it comes to 1/10 of an inch of water per acre per month. A kangaroo peeing in the right place could have changed the productivity of his fields if there had been any real reason to plant them in the first place. The last 3 years have been among the worst for water in this area in recorded history, says Arthur, and I've written this next year off as well, but I find it hard to believe that the extremes are going to become the norm. So he's like, I can't imagine that this is going to be how it's going to be forever. But then that's a gamble that he has to take. So even in years when he gets all 6,000 megaliters, managing water is as much a part of Arthur's work as the planting or the harvesting. Arthur thinks the rain is coming back. He thinks the water is coming back. But after 8 years of drought, he is too much in touch with the daily rhythm of weather, sunshine, and dry dirt not to have an almost, how do you Legiac? Okay. Elegiac sounds like an elegy. Okay. The elegiac view of the future. I do think the halcyon days are gone, he says. I think the days of big water are gone. Okay. I don't know what that word means. Halcyon. Okay. H-A-L. Happy and peaceful. Halcyon. Okay, cool. And I should have gotten that. I should have used context clues to figure out that he's comparing and contrasting how it is to how it was. It's really droughty now. It was really good before. Okay. I like All right, so I'm going to pause it here. You guys take a brain break. I'm going to go eat a cheeseburger, and then I'll come back and finish this up.